a indication someplace on the screen that it's being recorded. Since I'm the host, where it appears for me and where it appears for you are not the same thing. Good evening. Today we're going to talk about utilities, but first we're going to have a question and answer session. And before you ask a question, please check to make sure that your microphone is not muted, because it's really hard to answer. I'm not good at lip reading, so we'll just leave it at that. Anyone have any questions? Yes? Deborah?
Hey, Lawrence. Um, I was wondering, this is real basic, but I noticed on my software updates, I get automatic updates for my software. But then there was a paragraph that came up, kind of like to update my operating system, because I'm at Sonoma,
I didn't get the Zoom link.
14.7.2. And then it had a description of the new one, which is Sequoia 15.3.2, and then a long description of what it adds, iPhone mirroring and all that. Is that something I should do?
My recommendation is to always run the latest operating system. And
Okay.
there are two reasons for it. The newer operating systems, I'll tell you the carrot part. The new operating systems always add something new, like iPhone mirroring. With iPhone mirroring, if I bring my phone near my Mac, the Mac can detect it, and I push a little button in the dock, and it'll show up on the screen. So I have my phone on the screen. Now, why would you do that? You can do that for teaching purposes. It's great to teach people how to use a phone if you can show it in a session and broadcast it. But it's also a good way for just making sure that things match. My spouse had a contact list that didn't match mine. She has 5 degrees in the sciences and I don't. So her contracts were very different. And sometimes we'd have different addresses for the same people. This way I could take her phone, put it up there, look at my contacts, look at her contacts, and compare them. So lots of reasons why you might want to have that. So the carrot is that the new operating systems offer new features. There's a little asterisk for that, in that the new operating systems may not work on older computers. This one gentleman was telling me that he's trying to upgrade from a machine that he bought back in 2016. Well, that machine that he bought back in 2016 cannot run the latest operating system. So he probably can't run the latest operating system. Here's the stick part. When Apple releases, and it's a standard security, all computer companies do this. When Apple releases a new operating system, they also list what they fixed. And in the process of listing what they fixed, they also tell hackers that there's a flaw in the old operating system. So you immediately should update to the latest operating system, because the hackers are going to start working at how to attack old operating systems. The only genuine hacks that I have heard of Macs in recent memory have been with people running older operating systems. And when I say older operating systems, I mean something that Apple no longer supports. And what they do is that hackers find out that there's the vulnerability, so they run experiments to see how they can trigger that vulnerability to do something. The most common one that you see in the Mac world, which is not particularly dangerous, but it is upsetting, and I already had 2 or 3 people ask me this week about this, is called URL hijacking. That this one woman said that she was getting this message that was allegedly from one person, but when she clicked on it, took her someplace else. Well, that could be that somebody just has a message that they sent out that says that it's going to go to Holy Cross Hospital, and you click on it, and it really sends you to Pink Panther Lounge in Las Vegas. That's not even a hack. That's just they're hiding where it's really going. But another way to do it is that they will actually run a script so that if you type in Amazon on your computer, it would take you to Target or to some competitor. And that's true malware that somebody downloaded something to your machine. You said it's going to do this, and you said, sure, go ahead and do that, without realizing that one of the things that it did was that it was going to intercept where you were going and send you someplace else. And that's genuine malware. And Apple does a really good job of protecting you from that. But only if you have automatic updates turned on. If you don't have turn on automatic updates, if somebody finds a little chink in the armor, they can take advantage of it. Now, we don't really in the Mac world have true viruses like they have in the Windows world, but there are other things that people can do that will definitely upset you. So my strong recommendation is that you have Mac OS set so that it automatically does security updates. And when a new operating system comes up, you do an update to the operating system. Before you update to a completely new operating system, though, there are some things you should do. You should get rid of all your junk mail out of your mail. You should get rid of all your trash in your trash can. Get rid of everything because when you get a new operating system, the first thing the operating system does is index everything on your computer, and it slows it down for a day or two as it's busy indexing everything. You don't want it to waste time indexing junk and things you've thrown away. And the other thing is that a lot of people, they have older machines with smaller hard drives, and they add this new operating system. In order to put the new operating system in place, you need to have 3 times the amount of space that the operating system will require. The operating system, say it wants 5 gigs, it means you need to have at least 15 gigs free. Because you have the old operating system, you have the new operating system, and then you need a workspace for the two of them. So if you don't have enough space, you can't really do an upgrade. So there are some
Can
minor
you say
gotchas.
that? Yeah, can you say that again? So I'm writing it down. How much space? How do I figure it? Three
You
times.
want to have at least 3 times as much space as the operating system requires. So they say it
Okay,
requires 5 gigs of free space. You want to have at least 15 free.
okay. And so, if that's the case, then I just go ahead and say upgrade now, and then what happens?
How long does it
How
take?
long does it take? Like the computer shuts down and reboots and all that?
It might take quite a while, depending upon the speed of your internet. It might take quite a while down to download it because if you download, say, if the new operating system is 10 gigs, because it's a nice even number, and you have a connection that is 1 gigabyte per second, 1 gigabyte per second, it's going to take a long time to get 10 gigs because 10 gigs is 10,000 megabytes. So it'll take at least 10,000 seconds if it runs perfectly. And of course, it won't because things happen. So depending upon the speed of your internet, it could take quite a while to download it. And my recommendation to most people is answer all little questions it has about updating it, tell it to update, and then go out to dinner or go to bed or something. Probably better to go out to dinner because if you go to bed and then wake up in the morning and you go to your machine, you think everything looks different. You forgot that you upgraded and you think something strange. I've had people call me and say, somebody hacked my machine. It looks so different. No, it just upgraded the operating system, but they went to bed and forgot that's what they were doing. But it
Is it
will
going to look radically different? Uh,
sometimes it does in ways that you don't expect. For example, it might set a different background screen. Like when Sequoia came out, it had pictures of redwoods. And I had a person call say, there's a picture of trees on my screen. I don't understand why. It just changed the background screen. And you can
okay.
change it back to what you wanted to, but that's just how it comes. So in terms of the biggest change recently was basically when it went to um, Mac OS 11, when it went from 10.0 to 10.1 to 10.2, blah blah blah. But when it changed to Mac OS 11, Apple really did make some changes in the operating system that made things look different. But 11, 12, 13, 14, the changes are incremental. So it's not usually that it doesn't, you don't, you're not lost trying to figure out where things are. But in terms of the added functionality, like for example, with what is the current one? Uh, what is it called? It is called Sequoia. With
Sequoia.
with Sequoia, Apple adds Apple Intelligence, and what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the stuff you actually have to explicitly turn on. It's not obvious that it's there because it's not supposed to be. It's in the background doing things, and so you might have to turn things on in order to experience them. And a lot of people, for example, couldn't understand that the screen, the iPhone mirroring as an example, only works if you have one of the newer Apple Silicon machines. If you have one of the older machines, it doesn't work because it's not really possible. Um,
Oh, okay. And a question, I did get a iPhone finally, but it doesn't mean that if my iPhone gets lost, someone can access my laptop.
if you are a hacker, you can set up your phone so that it can access your laptop, but you have to be a hacker in order to put special software on the phone to do that.
Okay.
Most mere mortals, no, there's no way you can do that.
Okay.
Um, so no, they can't get in. However, I will tell you that the Mac operating system for quite a while now has had something on it called Passwords, which is an application that stores your passwords. And one of the nice things is that it stores your passwords in such a way that it syncs in between your Mac and your iPhone and your iPad and anything else you have. It'll automatically sync them if you tell it to sync through iCloud. That is a huge plus, but it can also be a minus if you lose your phone and you don't have it properly secured. Uh, I used to I used to work for NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And what I did is kind of hard to explain, but one of my duties was IT security. And people would come in to a conference room when we'd be talking about IT security, and they put down their phone unlocked. And anytime they did that, I kind of sneak over and I grab it and I'd set their language settings to Chinese. And then they couldn't get into their phone because they didn't know Chinese. Now, where everything is located is still the same in Chinese, but they would just panic and not realize that that was the case. And how did I do that? I did that because they left their phone unlocked or they never set a password. So you always want to set a password on your phone. And because your phone travels with you, it is the most vulnerable piece of electronics that you have. Um, and Apple has even done some things recently to make it less. You might have read stories about because when they're locked up, it's really difficult to break into an iPhone. So recently, people have been waiting until people leave them on desks and so on and so forth in a restaurant, and then they come by and they grab it while it's unlocked and then run off because at that point it is unlocked and it's real easy to get into it. Well, Apple has recently and recent operating systems made it impossible for them to get rid of the user information. So if you try to get rid of the user information, you can't, which means they can't sell it. And certain things like passwords requires a password. So even though they have a phone with them and they can look at your contacts and other things, they can't look at your passwords. They can't look at your wallet settings. There's still built-in protection even if they grab your unlocked phone. But keep in mind that your phone has staggering amounts of information on it that's intensely personal to you. It's got photographs of your family, it's got your home address, it's got the phone numbers of all of your relatives and friends. And if you're in an illicit relationship, it probably has lots of information about that. So there are lots of things that you don't want visible on your phone. And so that's why you should be paranoid about your phone because it does travel with you.
Yes.
Um, there is, if you have a government phone, if you have a government computer, it should only be used for government purposes. And I would quite often get some senior manager saying something's not working on my phone, even though I was not the help desk. and they'd give me their laptop and I'd open it up and it'd have their income tax return on it. Your income tax return has your social security number. It's got where you work. It's got how much you made. It's got all kinds of stuff that really shouldn't be in somebody else's hands. And because laptops are mobile, you should be almost as paranoid about laptops as you are about your phone. If you think about it, you say, well, my laptop is on my desk at home, it never goes anywhere. Then two things. First, you never should have bought a laptop because an iMac is cheaper than a laptop and it's got a bigger screen and it's faster and so on and so forth. So you probably shouldn't have bought a laptop in the first place. But the second thing is it's also easier to steal. So even if though it never leaves your home, be paranoid. Make sure that your machines at home are set up with password protections, just like your phone is, because people steal them.
Oh, thank
So
you.
be paranoid. Yes, Marcia, your microphone's okay. Good.
Yeah, I think this is relatively simple, but my phone is not letting me know when I get text messages. And I recently got a iWatch, and I don't know if that makes any difference. But so what do I need to do for it to let me know when I have a text message?
When you go into your phone and go into notifications, and
Right.
it has a list of things that you can notify, and go to messages and just tell it how you want it to be notified of a message. On my phone, I have it make a beep sound or it's actually a bird chirp. But anyway, it makes a chirping sound on my phone because that's how I have it set up. On my watch, which I have an Apple Watch, I have my Apple Watch vibrate because I'll notice if it vibrates and I really don't want my watch to make noises. So that's my particular preference, but you can go and set it how any way you want to. You can set it
Okay.
so
Well, I have it set for a horn, but it's I'm not getting any noise.
it could be that you have the volume turned down really low.
Okay, I'll try that.
Or the other thing is there's also a do not disturb switch on the side, and you might have it set to that. And so but there are a number of ways that it's designed so you can silence it for church and so on and so forth, and people forget to turn that off. And at that point, uh, people call them or send them text messages and they say, I didn't hear it. Well, it's there are many ways to control it, and that also creates some confusion sometimes.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
Lawrence,
Yes.
it's Sidna. I have a question about a mail group. I'm in a situation where I need to send emails regularly to 35 people, and I have them all in a little folder, near my computer, I mean, on my computer. But I don't know how to make it so I can just push that little, that folder and make it so that I don't have to manually enter 35
You
addresses.
can create mail groups in Mail, and
Yeah, mail group.
that's really what you want to do is you want to go into Google and say, how do I create a mail group in Apple Mail? And Apple has a page telling you how to do it. Um, it's not that difficult, but it's more than the short little answers that I like for the Q&A. Um, but
Okay.
what you want is a mail group. I have one for my brothers-in-law. Kathleen has 5 brothers, and rather than just type in everybody's, I just say James, and it pops up that group and it sends them to the 5 brothers plus her sister. So I don't have to. My 2 brothers are not talking to each other, so I address them separately. But it goes.
So I have another shorter question, easier. I have a new printer, an Epson printer, and every time I want to print something, it doesn't automatically connect. I have to connect it. And, it recognizes that I have a printer, it sees it, but I have to connect every time.
I'm not sure why it would do that. Is it wireless or
It's wireless.
Is she talking about printing from her phone, iPad, or computer?
Computer.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't. How far away is it?
Oh, maybe 12 feet, 10, 12 feet.
Oh, well, that shouldn't be a problem.
No,
I
it
can't.
prints when when I say choose printer, it'll print, but it's just not automatic like it used to be with my antiquated one.
And the answer is I don't know. That's something I'd actually probably have to look at.
Okay.
A lot of these things, I will tell you that I was IT, I was a senior IT manager at NOAA for 26, 27 years, something. And one thing I refused to do, and I even made up a little sign outside my office saying, I do not answer printer questions. I refused to change the toner. I refused to put paper in it. And I also never printed. And in that 25 plus years, I think I printed 10 sheets of paper because I'm vehemently anti-printer. And having said that, I will also say that we have two printers in the house basically because Kathleen wanted the printers. But I just really, really, really hate printers. Printers are mechanical as well as being digital. And because of that, they've got all kinds of just strange peculiarities. And sometimes you just have to actually look at it and try to figure out what it is. Um, but short of looking at it, I don't know that I have an answer because it should work.
Okay.
Most printers that are wireless printers, they use Wi-Fi, and the current Wi-Fi has a range of about 150 feet. So 12 feet, it should be able to handle that, unless you have it wrapped in aluminum foil or
No,
something.
no. Well, I just connect it and it prints, so it's just not automatic.
There was this is a sea story, but my dear spouse was a professor at the University of Maryland, and this one chemist was constantly he was in a different building. He was constantly complaining about the fact that his printer was not working, and IT would come over and say that it was working perfectly well, and he didn't understand why it wasn't working. So Kathleen went over there and she found out that he was in his office and the lab was just on the other side of the wall. But he was a chemist, but he had to have the lab um, electronically isolated because of some of the things that he was working with, very volatile chemicals. So essentially, he had put a Faraday cage into his lab. His lab was a Faraday cage, which means that it was impossible for any kind of radio noise to travel from his office through the wall to his printer. In other words, he had created his own problem. And she said, move it someplace else. And he said, well, I'd like it in there because that way I can't hear it. Okay, well, you won't hear it because it won't work. But he basically had put it in a cage so that the radio waves wouldn't go into it. And he didn't realize that that would block his access to the printer. So some things you just can't fix other than just, you know, looking at it and seeing what the problem is. Any other questions? Somebody sent me a question via email, and I don't know that they're on today, but the question was, um, he wants to, this guy got a new laptop and he's trying to move things from his old laptop to his new laptop using Migration Assistant. And it says that he doesn't have enough room. What does he want to do? Well, I told him to ask the question during the Q&A period because a lot of people run into problems like this. Anytime you're upgrading to a new machine, some things that you need to take into consideration is you actually need to have free space. And the easiest way to get free space is to empty out all of the out of everything out of your trash can, empty out the trash can in mail, delete all the junk mail. You can free up gigabytes worth of space that way. But the other thing to do is that if that still doesn't give you enough room, then you need to think about offloading some things. And to offload them, you can go out and get an external disk drive. This is a External disk drive is 2 TB. That's 2 trillion bytes or 2,000 GB. And it uses USB-C, so you just plug it into a modern machine and it'll just handy dandy little disk drive. This is another, I think this is also 2 TB disk drive. You can get these off of Amazon. You can buy them at Costco. If you don't want to spend that amount of money, this is a USB drive. I'm trying to pull it up in such a way that you're going to see it. This is a 128 GB USB disk drive. And Kathleen bought this, and I have no idea how much it costs, but I was looking on Amazon before the meeting started. You can get a 256 GB disk drive, which is essentially two of these, on Amazon for as little as um, you can get an Amazon Basics 256 GB flash drive for $17.99. And they can be, $27, $37, depending upon who you get it from. PNY has a special, you can get 3 of these for $37.99. One thing I will tell you about flash drives is that new machines have a USB-C connector, and the USB-C connector is this tiny little thing. And the older ones are USB-A connectors, and they're much larger. The new machines, you can't plug a USB-A flash drive into it. So you probably have to get something like a drive dock, which are inexpensive. Um, but the other thing you can do, this USB drive that I have, if you push out on one direction, it's USB-A, push out on the other direction, it's USB-C. So you can go between the old and the new. And that's one way to get around the problem. And they're inexpensive. They only require power when they're plugged into the drive, and the drive, your computer actually powers it. So it's a good way to do it, this kind of transfer. The other thing that's critically important when you're buying these, make sure that they are USB 3.0 or 3.1. And that the reason is that anything lower than 3, they are really, really, really slow. How slow? They can be up to 100 times slower. So if you're trying to make room on your machine, you don't really want to spend 100 times more time on the task than you have to. And the difference in price between the USB 2 and the USB 3 is significant, but hey, if you can get 256 gigs for 20 bucks, that's maybe significantly more than, say, $5, but your time is more valuable than that. So just make
Does
sure.
it matter what brand or anything?
I am partial to name brands. The ones that I buy tend to be SanDisk, SAN Disk. SanDisk is owned by, I think, Western Digital. The other one that I use are Lexar. Lexar big with the photography. I've been using Lexar um, flash drives in my cameras for, I don't know, 20 years. So I like those. I don't go for the off-brand. So if it's Joe's Garage or something like that. Um, I don't know how many of you ever been to a Micro Center. Micro Center are these huge electronic stores. They're the size, some of them the size of Costco, but they're regionally located. And near the checkout counter, they have these bins full of flash drives, and they're in primary colors, red, green, blue. And you can get really, really cheap USB drives there. They are all USB 1.0, 1.1. You can die of old age just trying to copy 10 photographs from your phone to one of those. But they're really cheap. And they're no-name brands. It just says um, you want to look for a brand that you recognize it, whether it's Samsung or Toshiba or SanDisk or Lexar, something like that.
So where's the closest micro center?
I don't know. Maybe Denver. I don't know. I don't know of any in Washington State. They used to have, what was the name of that place? it was a California store. They used to have one of their superstores in,
Electronics.
pardon?
Fry's Electronics.
Yes, Fry's. They used to have one of their stores over on the east side, um, in Bothell or someplace. I don't remember where it was. Um, and when I moved back to Washington State, I thought, oh, good, I can go to a Fry's. They went bankrupt the week before I was going to visit them, so they don't exist anymore. And yeah, I went to Fry's back when they first started in the 1970s. I went to, they would have new and used equipment in the same place. So you have to remember that personal computers were brand new. So back then when you went in there, you got these boards that you went and then made your own computer. And Fry's also had Coke machines. So if you were a geek, you could just wander around all day and drink Coke and play with electronics. One time I was in there, they had a Russian cryptographic teletype for sale. And if I'd had the money, um, that that was that was my goal, was to buy this. Why? Because the Soviet Union still existed. Even though I have no idea what I'd do with it, just having it as kind of this 400-pound thing over in the corner would just give me great joy. But it was way too much money for me. I was working as a bookstore manager at the time, and I think I was making $2.40 an hour or something. It would have taken me months to make the money. Anyway, it's now time for the formal meeting to start, and I saw the president there for a second. Hello, President. How are you doing? She's unmuting herself.
Wait.
There you
there.
are.
Yeah, you know when you have your hot corner set and you go to turn audio on and you miss it, and then you go to the corner and then you have nothing but a screensaver. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Do we have anybody new?
I don't know who 858-7299
Oh, hi,
is.
Brian. Brian is new. Yeah, I don't know who that is. I wonder if that's my dad. You know,
858?
but that's not a real phone number. 858-7299-753. It's too many digits. It's not the right placement. But I don't see him on here, but I know I set it up for him. But yeah, I don't see him anyway. Welcome, Brian. How'd you hear about us?
I think it was via email.
You know, nothing to get flustered over than a cuckoo clock behind you that now I can't hear anything. Oh, wow. My
It
evening
was
starting out with a bang. I'm sorry. How did you hear about us?
no problem. I think I got an email from you guys or from somebody else who forwarded me an email.
Oh,
So I just signed up, and I'm a geek at heart, so decided to join and see what this is about.
cool. Well, we welcome you. And yeah, if you have any questions, there's a chat on the side. I try to watch it because Lawrence can't see it when he goes and switches the view for his side of the computer. So sometimes
Right.
I'll try to chime in. Speaking of Lawrence, can you put the sign-in sheet
Yes, I
up?
can. How about that?
Perfect. I
Should have
think
just popped up in the chat window.
I see it. Okay, perfect. So everybody on the right side, well, at the bottom, you click chat and it should pop up on the right side. There's a link there which you just click on. It should open in Safari and you can just put in, I believe, name, date you.
Name,
Like your
email
friend.
address, and just check a box saying that you attended.
Yeah, if you guys could do that, I would very much appreciate it. And I will turn it over to the treasurer. Anything else we need to discuss? Don't you have something coming up that you need to pay? Well, I guess you can tell the treasurer that. I
Oh,
thought,
I sent her a bill.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for those that sent in your dues. Very much appreciated.
Yes, We got quite a few this past months, and thank you very much to everybody who sent it in. It brought our total balance in the account up to $2,516.63. So,
Of course, that's
with
before
those
she
bills.
pays the bill that I sent her, but
Yeah, send me in the bills you have, Lawrence.
pardon?
Send me the bills you have.
I did. I sent it to you last week or the week before last.
Oh, I didn't get any.
It was 500 and something dollars, so you would have noticed.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. Can you
Okay.
resend it, please?
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Um, we're going to talk about utilities tonight. And last month we talked about, I don't remember what we talked about. And we're going to talk about different things tonight. So let me open something here. And I'm going to share my screen because that's always a nice thing to do. If I can remember how. Ah, uh, Zoom says that it needs to quit in order to share my screen. So this is going to be awkward. Let's try it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
That's your NASA space capsule there.
Okay. What it says that it might not be recording it until I quit, but anyway, I don't want to quit, so we're just going to plunge along here. What we're going to talk about today is on the wrong screen. We're going to talk about, we had kind of a vote on this. We're going to talk about Find My preview, emoji and symbol viewer, and there was one other thing of it. I don't remember what, possibly weather. Anyway, we're going to start off with emoji and symbol viewer. Emoji and symbol viewer, I will first show you how to get to it. If you go into settings, under settings, there's this thing that says press the universals key, which is what this thing is. Let me blow this up a bit. Press the universal key if you have a keyboard that's got a universal key to show emojis and symbols. So if you press that key, it'll pop up the emoji and symbol viewer. But another way to get to it, which is actually what I prefer, is that if you go into your settings, there's this little button that says all input sources. If you press that, it pops up a new screen that allows you to add the screens to your menu bar, show input menu and menu bar. And so that's what I'm going to show you how to do that. Go to settings, type in keyboard because it's easier than trying to figure out where it is. And here's the thing that says that you double press that key to show emoji symbols. But if you you come over here to, where is it? Layouts? Yes, it says show input menu and menu bar. And so I have up here in my menu bar the emoji and symbol viewer. So I can show emojis or I can show the keyboard viewer. We're going to show emojis first. because it's kind of cool. Right now, the last thing I was looking at obviously was pictographs. This screen is resizable, so it comes up this size, but if you want to make it bigger, you can just drag it out and make it bigger. And these are things that are frequently used. These are various emoji, these are arrows, these are bullets, currency signals, Latin characters with little umlauts and diphthongs and whatnot, letter-like symbols, math symbols, parentheses, pictographs, and punctuation. Now, let me show you something about these things. Let's go to teach text, not teach text, what's it called now? It's called text edit. We're going to make a new document. It used to call teach text, and then they called it simple text, and now it's text edit. We're going to open up a new document in text edit. Going to go to show emojis and symbols, and we're going to go to pictographs, and we're going to take this little chess pawn, and I'm going to double click on it, and it puts a chess pawn on the screen. You can't see it because it's really small. So I'm going to say show fonts, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to say make it 288 pixels, and we have a pawn. And double click this, and we're going to have king, and we're going to have a rook, and we're going to have a knight. Actually, that was a queen. Let's add a king just for the heck of it. These, even though they look like pictures, are actually letters. They are formally defined and an extended character set. So they are letters, and it means that, among other things, when you write these into documents, they will even work in a text editor like this. Text edit is really designed for just text. It's not designed for images at all, even though text edit can do that sort of thing too. But it means that if you go to, you can put these into email to people, and you can play chess with them via email. Just stick it in your message, because they're not really pictures, and they don't take up as much space as pictures. Pictures, even small pictures, can be fairly large. So that's these letter-like symbols and all these sort of things. All of these things down here are actually letters. And they're also in different languages. You can set your keyboard preferences to Chinese and Japanese and Hindi and lots of other languages, and there are whole character sets that are internationally defined. And when you send them, they don't go as pictures, they go as characters. They're just in different languages. So the keyboard viewer is really, really, really handy if you want to do things to spice up something you're doing. You want to send things with French with proper accents, or you want to play chess by mail. I have a friend in Japan who's very fond of Japanese chess, which is called shogi. And if I type in shogi, it brings up the shogi characters, and I lost it there because I don't know why I lost it, but I did. So if I click that, it'll add one of the, I need to get this back over here so it knows what I'm talking about. You have to actually have a place where you want the character to go. So right now the cursor's over here on the second line. So if I type something now like this Chinese character, it'll put it there. There are other ways to do it, but I will show you that the other ways are not necessarily as great as you think. I can do a right click and say copy character info, and then I say paste, and what it does is it pastes a bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense to you. And so I will shrink this down so we can talk about it. These characters are defined in something called Unicode, and Unicode basically is the international definition of how that is stored. It's stored as a number, and it uses 2 bytes to store these Unicode characters. And so the character code for this is 68CB, which doesn't mean a thing to human beings, but it means something to computers. And so it stores this as just some numbers that are very compact. You can store them on a computer, sends it off, and on the other side it says, "Oh, you want that character," and it takes it off of your machine where it has uh, the character drawing, and it displays it on your screen. And that's how all these things are sent. So you can send all of this stuff in relatively few characters. If you sent this as a, well, I think the easiest way is I'll just save this. Save as sample. I'm going to call it sample. And I'm going to close up some stuff so I can find it. And if I go away. If I say sample, I say get info, it says that my tiny little document only uses 86 bytes. So keep that in mind. It says 86 bytes. I'm going to erase all of this. And now I'm going to show you the other part of this, which is finding emoji. You want to say, have a tree. And there are several tree emojis. And we're going to pick them all. There's this tree, and there's that tree, and there's that tree, and a house and a tree, and a different kind of tree, and a Chinese character for tree. So we're going to take these, and we're going to show you that they really are trees. We're going to increase the size. So go back here to format and increase these up to 288. You see there's a Christmas tree, an evergreen tree, a palm tree, a house and a tree, some kind of tree, and the character here. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to rename my original one so that I don't overwrite it. Okay, we're going to call this one, and that may not actually save me. It might write it right over the top of it. Oh, well. Anyway, we're going to go back and we're going to say get info now. And it didn't give me a... I do not know. Oh, there it is. And it says that it's now 24 bytes, which is not what I was expecting. One of the problems that you run into, these really are pictures, but they're pictures stored on your computer. And you can paste them in and use them as pictures. The reason why my demonstration didn't go right is I forgot that the Mac is looking it up and it's pulling the pictures off of your computer. But you will notice that the emojis that you have on the Mac or on your iPhone, your iPad, if you then go into Google and you paste the same things. So let's bring up Chrome, for example, and see what Chrome does. And if you look at these in Chrome, and you can't actually see it because it's really small, all of the icons look different. They all are different. That's because Chrome defines them in its picture set as different. They look different. So if you go to the Strait Mac site, I have little emojis in several places. If you look at the Strait Mac site in Chrome and you look at it with the Safari, the symbols will look different because the emojis are depending upon Google's set of graphics compared to Mac's set of graphics. But the characters and umlauts and everything are pretty much transparent no matter what machine you're using. And the emoji viewer and the symbol viewer, you really should learn how to use this. Trying to put an umlaut over a character on a PC is very, very difficult. Trying to find an arrow in Windows is very, very difficult, but on the Mac it's really easy. You say you want an arrow, type in arrow, and it'll go out and find all kinds of arrows, and including these up here showing you basically traffic signs and all kinds of mathematical arrows and illustrative arrows. And you saw what it did for tree. If you type in the word house, it'll come up with emojis of house, as well as in some cases it'll come up with other languages with the words that they have for house. I think this is yes, that's I don't know what language that is, but anyway, that's a letter for the word house. And there are different kinds of parentheses and all kinds of things. So the character viewer is really, really, really handy. The keyboard viewer is not quite as obvious why this is cool, but it is. It's essentially reproducing the keyboard that I have below me, and I accidentally pressed the universal key twice, which is why I brought that pictograph up. But if I press the uppercase, the shift key shows you the uppercase characters. These are the lowercase characters. This is the escape key. This will brighten and darken my screen. And if you don't believe me, you should see it getting brighter and darker. If I press this, it'll tile windows. I don't have that many windows, but it'll tile them back and forth and turn the microphone on and off and all kinds of stuff. Some of these things won't work unless I have a movie playing or something, but all that looks fairly cool. But if you hold down the Option key, you'll see that you can do other things. Like, for example, Option W is this Sigma sign, and Option E is this accent sign. So if I wanted to have an accented key, I can press Option E and then press E, and it'll give me an accented E. And I need to bring up text edit again. Text edit, new. And let's increase the size of things. Where's the fonts characters? Oh, it ran off the side of the screen. Move this up to 96. So I press Option E, and it gives me an accented E. If I press Option U, I didn't work. Because I'm hitting the wrong key. Gives me an umlauted U. It's a way to write French and German and so on and so forth the way that the French and the Germans write without actually having to know anything at all about a special keyboard. And there are special things built in here, like Option K shows a degree, Option O shows a Option 8 shows a different kind of degree. Shift Option 8 shows a degree sign. What is it? That's what I wanted. Shift Option K gives you the Apple symbol. This Shift Option A is not universal. If you stick this into an email message and it shows up on a Windows machine, I have no idea what it's going to display, but it won't show the Apple registered symbol. But if you want to get an Apple symbol, that's a way to do that. That's Shift Option K. And you can look at the screen and it'll show you what happens when you press the various characters. That's the regular keyboard, that's the Option keyboard, that's the Shift and Option keyboard, and just all kinds of neat things. I'm trying to remember how to get the sign for the, oh, I remember what it was called. You might have noticed that the little cloverleaf symbol that for the command key, it's nowhere to be found. Well, you can, using the Emoji Finder, you say feature, and, or is it interest? Interest, that's it. This little symbol that Apple adopted is from Norwegian Mac makers. When they wanted a point of interest on their maps, they used this symbol. And the original type designer for Apple, Susan, I don't remember her last name right this second, she thought that was really cool. So she adopted it for the command key on the keyboard. And a lot of people since then have wondered, how do you actually come up with that command key? Because they can't find it. Well, if you type in the word interest into the character viewer, it'll show you that little symbol. And then if you position your cursor where you want it and double press that, it'll pop up on the screen. So that's how the keyboard and emoji viewers work. And I'm going to stop that for a second and ask anybody if you have any question. You don't? Pretty much all the national flags are in, you can find them in the emoji viewer. If you want to have a national flag, it doesn't have state flags, which is a pity because the Maryland flag is quite pretty, and even if the Washington State flag is a little bit boring. Um, I was born in Washington, so I can say the Washington State flag is boring if I want to. Any questions? The next thing I want to talk about is Find My. And Find My is a little bit difficult to demonstrate on a something that we're recording because Find My, among other things, could reveal information I don't want to reveal. So instead of showing you a live demonstration, I'm going to show you screenshots of Find My. This is Find My on a phone, and we're going to start at the other directions. We're going to start with this one. Find My can do all kinds of different things. So you can have an air tag and stick it on your bicycle, or you can stick it on your dog or whatever you want to have a air tag on, and it'll show.
Lawrence,
Yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I just saw somebody did have a question. It's on the side. It says, is there any way to get musical notation such as piano or guitar chords charts?
There is some musical notation, but it's extremely limited. And I don't know enough about guitar. No, I don't read music, so I just know that I have stuck little musical symbols. There's a symbol for a triplet, and there's a symbol for a quarter note, and a couple other things, but it's really limited. You can't use it for creating music. There's specialized software for that. If you're interested in that sort of thing, the most popular program is something called Finale, where you can actually write sheet music on your machine. I don't know enough about guitar notation to know if it has anything or not, because I wouldn't know what I'm looking for. I know it's called, frets, but the kind of fretting I do is quite different. But anyway.
Thank you.
Things that you can do with it. You can find your bicycle if it's got an air tag on it. You can find, this says Belkin earbuds, but if you have Apple AirPods, you can now track these as something that'll track. You can track your phone. All of these things, though, you have to register with Find My. So if you get a new laptop or you, yes?
Sorry, here I am again. Somebody would like to know first, what is an air tag?
Oh, what is an air tag? That's a good question. I don't happen to have. An air tag is a small little disc. You can buy them in sets of four for $100. Amazon sometimes has on sale for $70 for a set of four. You can also buy them individually, and I guess they're $25. I don't know what they are, but it's a small little thing. It's got a user replaceable battery. When the battery dies, you just unscrew it and put a new battery in, and it works. You hold the AirTag near your phone to register it and say what you're attaching it to. And I have my camera bags have AirTags. When I go traveling overseas, my luggage has an AirTag. Things that I might leave someplace, I put an AirTag in it. As an example, when I'm traveling with my camera in my car to go take pictures out at the Dungeness Restoration Center or something like that, and then I go to Costco. When I get inside of Costco, my phone will beep and it'll say that I've left my camera behind. Okay, that's nice to know, except that I really don't need to know at that point. But at other places, it's nice to know that you left your camera behind. But it'll just tell you where that AirTag is located, and you can name them. So you can say that, this AirTag, call it camera one or whatever you want to call it. Or, if you've got a dog named Bowser, call it Bowser. Whatever it is that you're tagging, you give it a name and you register it with your phone just by bringing it near the phone. It says, oh, you've got an AirTag. What do you want it to do? And where's it located? And what's it going to be doing? And the batteries last roughly a year. And there have been lots of stories in the newspapers about people finding their luggage in airports and people finding their car after it had been stolen because it had an AirTag on something inside of it. They're really very quite useful. That's for AirTags, but they will also, you can use Find My to tell your computer to tell where it is. Why would you do this for your desktop computer? Because it's going to be on your desk. Well, if somebody steals it, once somebody connects it to the internet, it'll tell people, hey, I'm located here. And you'll be able to actually see where it's located. It's good for things like laptops as well as desktops and whatnot. And you should also turn on Find My for your phone. That way, if you lose your phone, you leave it someplace, you can find it. As an example, my dear spouse had her phone in a shopping bag and along with some other things because she was doing a bunch of things and she just didn't have any pockets. So she left the phone in the shopping bag. A woman came into church, saw the shopping bag, thought it was hers, took it home. Kathleen said, I don't have my phone. I don't know where it is. And we used the Find My to go to this woman's house and ask, did you by any chance take a blue shopping bag from church? And she says, oh, yeah, but it was mine. I said, could you bring it to us? And she brought it to us and said, this doesn't look like my stuff at all. No, it wasn't hers. It was Kathleen's. It was also useful to me for finding out where Kathleen was. Um, if I wanted to call her, but I was afraid she was in a meeting or something, I could look on Find My and see that, oh, she's here or she's there. And yes, it's okay to call, or no, I shouldn't call. My daughter lives in England. I have Find My set on her phone. And by the way, my daughter has to choose to share that information with me, and I have to choose to share my information with her. It doesn't happen automatically. It's under your control. But if my daughter's home, I know that I can probably call her because she's not at work, as long as it's the time zone difference. If it's 8 in the evening, I can call her. Obviously, if it's 3 in the morning, that's probably not a good idea. But it's a good way just finding out whether or not you can interrupt your loved ones. When Kathleen got very sick in 2023, I was at the hospital having a ultrasound, and I wanted to before I came back to Scrim, I wanted to know if I should get something in Port Angeles. And I was going to call her, but first I looked to see where she was. And according to Find My, she was in the hospital. Well, she'd driven herself into the hospital because she was bleeding, and she spent 2 weeks in the hospital. And then things went downhill, and she died in January. But it's a way of keeping track of people and things and objects. And it's built into your iPhone, it's built into your Mac, but it's an application that is um, on your, it's on your Mac, it's on your iPad, it's on your iPhone, and AirTags come with it, and the newest AirPods have the capability built into the case. Um,
I've been digging around and I found one of my air tags. If there, that's what it looks like.
yeah, it's about the size of a quarter. They're not terribly large. Um, and as you go around looking around for them with your phone, it'll even point you in the right direction. You can set it so it'll show you the distance in feet rather than meters. But it's a useful thing. And if you have to be some distance away, it'll bring up a map showing you where it is and how to get there, and give you directions. You can press that little button and it'll draw a map on how to find your device. But you don't need an AirTag for your phone or your computer because the capability is built into them. If they connect to the internet, it'll be active. The regular AirTags, um, they don't have to be, you don't have to do anything. You just register them with your machine and they work until the battery dies. You might wonder, well, how do people find them? on an AirTag, because the range that it uses, it's using something called Bluetooth. The range is actually fairly limited. And so if somebody's living out on a farmhouse, how will it find it if it's on that farmhouse and it's surrounded by farm fields? The way that the location services work is really very ingenious. Apple uses other Apple devices to kind of relay the signal. So it's basically creating this huge invisible map of AirTags, and only your AirTags are presented to you, but it uses all other Apple devices within range to help you find it. So you don't, the person, they don't have to have a Mac or anything. They don't have to be connected to the internet. You still might be able to find it. It's very clever technology, and Apple has a whole bunch of security built into it to make sure that it's under your control. You don't share your location with anyone else unless you want to. Um, and the only the only thing that I would caution people about is personal relationships. If you were in a personal relationship with somebody and then you decide you want to end that personal relationship, you should go and deregister that person from sharing your location, because there have been some incidents where boyfriends or girlfriends would stalk each other after breaking a relationship. But aside from that, it's a really robust and useful technology that um, people should be using. And any questions on that? No questions. The next one that I want to talk about is Preview. And Preview is a utility. If you do something like you have a picture on your screen and you want to look at it and you click on it, when it opens, what is opening it is Preview. Preview is a utility on your Mac that's what it does. It was originally designed for previewing photos. So if you have a photo, just click on it and it'll open it up. It has some other interesting features, though, that a lot of people don't know about. This is a TIFF image, and unfortunately, I need to change my background because nobody can see anything because the background's so cluttered. Desktop. That's not what I want. I want wallpaper. Let's pick that. Okay. If you find something that you don't know if it'll open or not, if you right click on it, say open with, and it'll list everything that you've got on your machine that can open this thing. And if preview is one of the options, and I don't see, oh, it's right up here at the top. If preview is one of the options, is one of usually the safest things you can use to open something, because it's not judgmental. A lot of things, when you open up Photoshop, it asks, are you registered, and how did you vote in the last election, so on and so forth. But preview doesn't care, it'll just open it. So I tell it to open this, and this looks like an odd little document. This is the rental agreement for the house that we had in Taiwan in 1957. It's written in Chinese, and no, I can't read it except for this part down here that's got my father's name in English. But this is the rental agreement. And well, there's something about it that you should know. I scan this on a scanner, and this document is 392 megabytes in size. In other words, it's so large that it would take 3 of these little USB drives in order to hold it. And then, of course, it wouldn't work because it'd be scattered across 3 USB drives. However, with using Preview, I could save it in different formats. And I could save it as a PNG, which is a different visual format. And in PNG, it's still pretty huge. It's 211.3 megabytes. Or I could save it in PDF, and it would be 252.6 megabytes, still pretty big. Or I could save it as a JPEG, And as a JPEG, it's 26 megabytes. So think about this. It was originally almost 400 megabytes, and now it's 26 megabytes. I could save it in Apple's high efficiency image format, and it's 13 megabytes. It's the same file. And if I open them up, this is the original, and this is Apple's high efficiency one that's just a fraction of the size. They look the same. If you look at the size of the dimensions of the document, the original is 9,784 pixels by 13,360 pixels, and so is the Apple high efficiency document. They're both the same dimensions and they look the same. So how do you perform this magic? Well, you perform this magic by using Preview. And here's an example of something. This is some punts on the Thames River in Oxford. The students like to wander around pushing these. You run a punt by using a long pole and you push yourself along. This is what the original photo looked like. And this is what I created. This is a mosaic. And to show you the kind of magic, I'm going to increase the size of this. As I blow it up, you'll see that this one image is actually made up of 5,000 images that I took throughout England. So as you wander around through the photograph, you'll see that it's made up of thousands upon thousands of photos. And it makes a mosaic of the punts. And it kind of looks very art impressionistic. But anyway, it's huge. It is, how big is it? I've covered it up, so I don't know. It is 134 megabytes in size. So I have this 134 megabyte file, and somebody wants to get a copy of it. How do they get it? I go to File, I say Export, and it pops up with this, where I want to have it located, and that's nice to know. But here's the important part down here. I can save it as a high efficiency file. I can save it as a JPEG 2000. Don't ever save things that way. Open EXR, don't ever save things that way. I can save it as a PDF, a PNG, or a TIFF. Well, it's a TIFF already, and we know the TIFF's too large. So let's save it as a high efficiency file. And I just leave the settings alone. I'm not going to change anything. And I say save, and it saves it. And now I open up this one, and it went from 134 megabytes to, if I press the right button, to 12.8 megabytes. So it's just a tiny fraction of the original file. And I did that with Preview. Some things to note, though, is that you can get a little bit different. This original JPEG that I saved over here, this is the original file that I created the image from. No, that's too small. Anyway, I don't care. We're going to experiment here. I'm going to say export, and I'm going to say save it to JPEG. And since I already have something, I can save it, fine. I say to save it, and I've saved it as a JPEG, and it's going to be, it says it's going to be 21 megabytes. So it's not as good a format as the Apple's high efficiency, which is 12 megabytes. But here's a problem with Apple's high efficiency. Even though it's an open standard, most people in the Windows world can't see it. So if you're going to send somebody something in the Windows world, you're better off always sending it as a JPEG. But say you happen to know that they don't have much storage on their device and you want to save it. So how would you save it for them? We go up here and we say export, and we're going to save it as a JPEG. If you crank this down here to about 1/3, you'll see that it decreases the size quite a bit. So at the default for this, it's going to be 20 megabytes, and down here it's going to be less. It's going to be like, 5.1. So we're going to call this punts2 and say save. And I'm going to open up this one, and I'm going to open up punts2, and it's going to be really hard to tell the difference between the two of them. On most images, you can save about, 2/3 of the space simply by cranking it down lower. And that's nice to know, because you can save a lot of space. The other thing that you can do, and I'll use my original punts photo for this. This photo was 1.6 megabytes in size, and it's 2000 by 3000. Most people, when they view things in email, they don't really want something terribly big. So not only can you save it as a compressed format, but you can also make it just smaller. I can adjust the size. The average size of a screen running across on a laptop is about 800 to 900 pixels. So I'm going to type in 900 pixels. I'm going to change the resolution to 72. It said it was at 300. And that looks much smaller, but if I say view actual size, you'll actually see it as much larger than it really is. Then I come along here and I say export. I go to my JPEG thing and I crank it down here to about 1/3 and say, we're going to call this Oxford 2, save. This is the original, and this is the one that I just created that is much, much smaller. The original was 1.6 megabytes, and this one is 125K. So it's less than 1/10 the size, but to the person you're sending it to, they look identical, just that one's 10 times bigger. And unfortunately, for my next example, I don't actually have it. Oh, no, revert changes, I don't care. I need a picture that's got text on it. You'll just have to take my word for it. If you're running one of the modern Mac operating systems, the other nice thing that you can do with Preview is you can use it for scraping text off of things. I like to go into, when I'm going to parks and such, and it tells me that this is the painted desert and this part of the painted desert is such and such. I like to take a picture of the sign so I remember what it is that I'm looking at. Well, later on when I'm making captions, I don't necessarily want to copy everything off of that sign by retyping it. The Mac now has text recognition built into Preview if you're using one of the more recent operating systems. You just run your cursor across the text on the picture, it'll turn it into text that you can then paste into something as a caption. And you don't have to do any particular, you don't have to retype anything. If there are typos in the original, you'll have just the same typos. It's really quite magical. There's if you've been to the Squim post office, if you go, as you're going through the front door, if you go over to the extreme left, there's a driveway there. The gate is always shut, and it's got a whole bunch of collections of signs that are just not very friendly. U.S. government property, keep out, no admittance, just a whole collection. I think it's quite hilarious because it's also quite redundant. You can go take a picture of the fence there, of the gate, and then just scrape the text off of it, and just you have a nice collection of ominous sounding signs, and you can make your own. You know, you don't have to do anything necessarily useful with this technology, but sometimes it can be fun. Any questions on Preview? Unfortunately, the iPad doesn't have anything like Preview, which is a shame. I wish it did, because I've tried to do some of this stuff on the iPad, and on the iPad, sometimes you have to work harder. I said that if I had time, I was also going to cover something else, but I don't remember what I said I was going to do. So what did I say I was going to do? Oh, font book screenshot and weather. I was going to talk about weather. Since Noah has actually been in the news, I'm going to talk about weather for a second. And I got to show my screen again and bring up weather. The weather app, you can customize it. It's got this sidebar. Normally, it'll just show you the weather wherever you happen to be. And it tells you the weather now, and it shows you into the future. So it's cloudy now. You're going to be able to see the moon around 8 o'clock. Then it's going to get cloudy again, and sunrise is going to be at 7:16. And then you can press this little bar, and it'll show you into the next day, and it's going to rain in the afternoon and all that sort of stuff. And you can click on this, it'll give you Wednesday's forecast, and you can go through the day and it'll show you what's going on at the temperature. And you can change this. Right now it's showing um, um, temperature. That down here is precipitation and precipitation total and all kinds of things that you can look at. But the sidebar, which you can customize, you can add other places. So if you go into settings, you can say if you want it in Celsius, or you can have it in Fahrenheit, or just use whatever your computer's already using. You have it in miles per hour, or kilometers, inches, or millimeters, or whatever it is you want to know. And you can say whether you want to get alerts for severe weather, but you can also add where you want different places. I went this weather in Squim. I went the weather in Seattle, which is not necessarily the same. I went the weather in Salford. This is in England because that's where my daughter lives. Yokosuka, which is where she was born. And because it's daylight over there, you notice it changed the screen. It's dark here, but it's daylight in Yokosuka. Alexandria, Virginia, my brother lives there. Silverdale, because I go to Silverdale quite often. And then when I want to feel good about the weather, I also have Antarctica and Prudhoe Bay. You'll notice that Prudhoe Bay is -11 right now, and Antarctica is much colder. So you can add these things to the sidebar and just learn a lot. One of the things that people have been, a lot of conspiracy theories asking, where does the data come from? Almost all this data comes from NOAA, but quite often it gets massaged by other places. And if you go to the About menu in Weather and click on Weather, it comes up with all kinds of information about the weather thing, and severe storms forecasts and air quality and all kinds of stuff tells you that. But if you click this one, the data button, it shows you the same thing. It's not what I wanted for. The map data. These are all the different places that it gets map data for. It's a huge, 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 huge list, because it's not getting it only from National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's also getting it from British Met and Environment Canada and whoever happens to be the local weather outlet. So weather is really quite cool. Weather's originally appeared on the iPhone, and then they added it to the iPad, and it's a recent addition to the Mac. And with the new operating system, you can actually customize your desktop. So I have a second screen over here that the weather's on there all the time. So I can just click on it to get weather. Any questions on that? And I've got just a couple more minutes. So I want to talk about a question that I get a lot, which is how to take a screenshot. And for that, I should go find some document someplace. Okay. Actually, that's a good idea. I'm going to bring up messages because there's a piece of spam.
Lawrence,
Yes.
there's a question. It says, where is the monitoring place for the swim weather?
That's a good question. The answer is SQUIM does not have a, I want to look at people. SQUIM does not have a National Ocean Service weather station. The Weather Service office is located at SeaTac, and it covers a very wide area. They do have instruments all over the place. They've got them at the UW, they've got them at Mount Baker, they've got them at Mount Rainier, they got them all over the place. They don't have one in SQUIM. What they do is they build these huge mathematical models that model the currents, and they derive data between one point and another point. So if it's this temperature at one monitoring station and it's this temperature at another one and it's this temperature at a third one and the wind is blowing this way, they factor that in for deriving that based upon the elevation and so on and so forth. It's probably going to be this temperature at your place. And you might have noticed that there were actually two different entries for SQUIM, because there's SQUIM where I'm located and there's SQUIM as in the city of SQUIM. So it always, when you first set it up, it's going to say where I'm located, and it's going to give you a reading for that. And then if you add SQUIM as a town, it's going to add it for the city of SQUIM. And the city of SQUIM is always going to have different weather than I am. Why? Because I'm a mile from the strait, and SQUIM is about 3 or 4 miles or something like that. If you live up on Bell Hill is 600 to 700 feet high in some places. It's going to have different weather, and it knows that, and it's built into the weather model. And the weather model derives it for the missing pieces. The U.S. Weather Service has the United States divided up into 140,000 regions, and they give a forecast for every region every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day, every day of the year. That's an awful lot of forecasts. The Weather Service doesn't have that many people. It's only got 5,000 people. So how does it do that? Well, a lot of those weather forecasts for the indeterminate parts are done by model. And then they go through and they verify how accurate the model was. So if there's a discrepancy, it was down a degree or up a degree or had more rain or whatever, they factor that into the model. It's automatically collected, and the forecasters get a scorecard on how close they were. It's rather complicated, but for SQUIM, they don't have a weather station here, and it's mathematically derived. But it's the mathematical model is quite good. The accuracy in the 1960s was they had about a 60% accuracy rate, and the accuracy rate today is over 95%. It may not be exactly the right temperature. You might get more rain than they expected, but if they say there's a 50% a chance of rain tomorrow and there's no rain at all, that would be a major heads would roll. That would be unusual. But they don't have a station here in SQUIM simply because there are 330 million Americans, and 5,000 people can't give little micro forecasts for everything. There are micro forecasts for special events, the Super Bowl, presidential inauguration. For major events, the Weather Service will have a special forecast just for a special smaller region. But normally it's just one of their 140,000, 120,000 regions. And you have to remember that those regions can cover things like mountaintops and open ocean and large portions of Alaska that are nothing there but caribou. So when I say 120,000 regions, keep in mind that those are fairly large. And the average weather reporting function in the United States, it's not by zip code, it's not by population center, it's mostly by counties. So the forecast will be for the county of Clallam. It'll be for the county of Howard. Howard County, where we were in Maryland, you could put about 60 of them inside of Clallam County. Clallam County is actually really huge. There are states smaller than Clallam County. And San Bernardino County is the largest county in the United States, and it's just massive. and it goes from the Pacific Ocean to Nevada. So it's got a staggering range of climate variability. San Bernardino has about 6 or 8 forecasts. Clallam gets 1, but then it derives it for smaller places in between. So when you go to the National Weather Service website and you type in Clallam County and you say it probably knows that you're in Sequim, but if it doesn't say you're in Sequim, you'll notice that it'll draw an area around there, and the forecast is for the stuff in that area, and that's done mathematically. It knows what's above you, what's below you, which way the wind's blowing, what the temperature is, what the humidity is, and from that it comes up with a forecast. Was that a too complicated answer to what might have been a simple question?
That's good. Thank you.
Other questions? I know way too much about the weather. I work for National Ocean Service, which doesn't do weather forecasts, but about 60% of the mathematical model for the world comes from ocean data. So I had a lot to do with it, even if it really wasn't really my job.
Bye-bye.
I was going to say there's a lot of interest in the ambient weather network. That is local people who have their own little weather stations. And if you go to that, it's an app on the phone. You can see what other people's temperatures are in your most immediate region. And it's amazing how many people are
Yeah,
signed up for that and are doing some reporting. I don't believe that it's very powerful in terms of forecasting, but in terms of the temperature at the moment or what's happening at the moment, it seems to be fairly accurate.
the something about the crowdsourced weather you should know is that it's only as good as its data. And I'll give you an example. The Weather Channel, or I don't remember who it was, they used to sell these kits called Weather Bug, and they sold them to schools. And the Weather Bug reporting network would collect this information and they'd distribute it. So if you wanted to know what the weather was in your area, it would find the closest place that had a weather bug. And when my daughter was in elementary school, and she's now in her late 30s, so this was a while ago, she wanted to know what the weather was right outside. And I said, well, I don't know, we'll look at what WeatherBug said. And so typed in to WeatherBug, and it found my local station, and it said the outside temperature was 192 degrees, which now the East Coast does get really hot, and even with humidity, it might felt like it's 192, but that did seem a little high. And so I just thought it was some screw up. But then the next day in the Washington Post, I was reading this article about this fire at an elementary school. Somebody had set fire to the WeatherBug, the rack. It was outside of the science room, and somebody had set fire to it. So it was an accurate temperature, because at that particular point, before it melted down and completely stopped functioning, it did reach 192. And then it just froze forever, because that was the last anyone ever heard of it. And that's one of the problems with a lot of the crowdsourced weather. There was another example where a university said that they had their own little independent. A lot of the weather stations are automatic, even with the Weather Service. Weather Service has this thing called AWIPS, which stands for Automated Weather Forecasting Information Processing System. I don't remember what it stands for. Something like that. And an AWIP station is, they take an acre and they fence it off, and it's got this little robot in the dead center that's not near anybody, not near any trees, and it collects rainfall and dew and temperature and so on and so forth. Well, this university, they decided they were going to do it cheaper than the Weather Service. Instead of having an acre, they just stuck it in this courtyard, and they had it set up there. And during the night, it said that they'd had 4.5 feet of rain, which seemed excessive because it had rained a lot, but not 4.5 feet. During the night, one of the gutters came off of one of the buildings, landed on top of this, and it was pouring all the water off of the roof onto the top of their weather monitoring station. So they ended up with 4.5 feet of water. The Weather Service checks their data for things like that, but the crowdsourced places, they don't have the means to do that. So I'm not bad mouthing the crowdsourced data because it is useful, but that's not what the Weather Service uses for their forecasts and for their reporting. One more C story about this. The down at the bottom, when you're watching the weather, they used to have these things called a cryon. A cryon is that running text that runs across the bottom. And the TV stations bought this technology from this company that would read the Weather Service stuff off of the Weather Service website, and they translate it and then process it as cryons for local weather stations. So the local weather station would have this weather stuff that was scrolling across the bottom, and nobody at the station actually had to do anything. The Weather Service changed the formatting of their website, and people were on their TV stations were broadcasting things that, like, say, tomorrow it's going to be -17 in Oklahoma in the summertime, which it wasn't. And that's because the Weather Service had changed their site format, and the Cryon reader didn't realize that and was just sending garbage data out. It was inventing towns and all kinds of strange things. And the weather stations yelled at the Weather Service. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with this box that the TV stations bought that was trying to read the website and turn it into data. And that's not a good practice. But I do remember all kinds of interesting discussions of that. Any other questions? Why don't you think about what you want to do for April and send me an email. There's still other utilities that we could talk about. For example, talking about, there was suggested font book and taking screenshots and things like that. Screenshots are definitely something that a lot of people want to know about. And font book, it's definitely nice to know how that works and why you should care. But if you have other suggestions, please send them.
Lawrence, I have a quick question.
Yes.
I had a phone call, and so I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but when you were showing the different sizes of files that could be open with, or that was like a JPEG or with a PDF or what have you. So when you scanned that document originally through the scanner, did you tell it what kind of a file you wanted it to be to save to the desktop, or how did you make the different
I originally scanned it as a TIFF image because the scanner that I had, that's the only way that it saved things. And it was a fragile piece of rice paper. And so I wasn't going to take it anywhere else. I was going to use this scanner that I had. And when it scanned it as a TIFF image, and a TIFF image is an uncompressed video image. And I could explain what that means, but not right now. But anyway, that was the only choice I had. So my original document was the TIFF image, and that's because that's the only thing the scanner supported at that point. More modern scanners have, they can scan things in a variety of different formats. If I was scanning that today on my printer, it would have been a considerably smaller document, but this was, I don't know, 10 years ago. And TIFF was the original format for scanning things. I don't know if that answered the question.
Well, I'm just not sure how you got it in as a PDF or as a JPEG or as a
PNG. I used Preview and I exported it.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
I loaded up the TIFF image and then I exported it as one thing, then another thing, then another thing. So I could show you the different.
The missing link. Okay. It was all bit through Preview.
It's all through Preview. Preview is really, really, really clever and well worth understanding.
Okay, sounds good. Well, then we will send you in our
suggestions.
Sure.
I have a question that might be quick, might not. If it's quick, maybe you could answer it. If it isn't, then maybe not. Um, but I'm wondering about file association. On Windows, that's an easy thing to do. On Mac, it doesn't seem so easy to do. I mean, you can say open with, and then it'll go up and it'll open that particular file. There even is a checkbox that you can say always open with. But it appears to be only that one document, and it doesn't do that with all the same file extenders. I like
Actually,
it.
if you, that's how I set up preview to open up TIFF, because the Mac, if you install Photoshop on your machine, Photoshop will assume that it wants to open up every TIFF image. And I did not want to open up Photoshop, which takes forever to load,
Right.
every time I clicked on a TIFF image. So I went through and I did a get info on a TIFF image and I said, set as default to preview. And that's how it opens now. If I click on a TIFF image, it's going to open in preview. That's how
Hmm.
you set it. And it should work. Um, I will tell you though that a lot of people on the Mac um, at our last meeting, someone said that they changed an HEIC file to a JPEG just by going and changing the extension. That's not what changes the format. And I have seen people who've done that and they think they were setting it to a default to open a particular file, but no, they were setting it to a file that had been mangled in some way. And in that case, it won't do that trick. But as far as I know, the setting it to be the default application should say from that point on, if you click on it, it'll open with that application. It should
Very good.
work.
I'll give that a go.
Yeah. Any other quick questions? If not, then good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you very much.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you.
Welcome.